So hello, guys. This is Tim and Julie Harris, and this is the Harris Real Estate University Superstar Interview. Now, what is the Superstar Interview? The Superstar Interview is our opportunity here at Harris Real Estate University to give back to you. So what we do every Friday is we set aside a half hour to an hour, and then what Julie and I will do is choose someone from the real estate industry. Sometimes it's a top-producing agent like many of you. Other times it might be a leading broker, somebody who just wrote a book. We're interviewing a couple authors coming up. Lots of really, I think, insightful folks. And then other Fridays what we'll do is we'll choose someone who's maybe not directly in the real estate industry, but in the real estate industry and can have an influence on your business. And today's example is a really, I think, a perfect example of that, Mr. Joel Ramirez. So, Joel, welcome to the call.
Thank you for having me, Tim, and I appreciate the gesture. I'm looking forward to speaking with y'all.
Good. So you might want to, on your headset or on your phone, you might want to pull it a little bit away from your mouth because we can hear you breathing. Hopefully you're not that excited. Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
All right. All right, good. So I have to always make the audio quality really good on these calls, Joel, because we actually have a lot of people that will download these calls because they're free and listen to them on their iPods while they're exercising. And we get some interesting feedback if the audio quality isn't exactly right, so it's kind of funny.
Gotcha.
All right, in any event, so Joel, let's just jump right in. You're Joel Ramirez, and you work for Titanium Solutions, and Titanium Solutions is who and what do they do?
Basically we are the leading provider of homeowner contact and counseling services. We have offices located in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Fort Mill, South Carolina. We work with many of the nation's largest mortgage servicers, primary mortgage insurers, government agencies, counseling agencies to facilitate communication with homeowners facing foreclosure. And we want to do that before it's too late. So what we do is we basically make in-person contact with homeowners who are in arrears, and their information is provided to us by these servicers.
So what we're going to focus on specifically for this call, guys, is something that Titanium has, I think, really perfecting to an art form, and that's processing and closing short sales. So we're going to be focusing on that, and that really is Joel's focus inside Titanium. So we've known Ken Tramp for a long time, years and years and years, and Titanium has always been one of the first, I always say, to-dos that you do when you join Harris Real Estate University. If Titanium is looking for what they call a home retention counselor in your particular area, we always suggest that you apply to be that HRC. A lot of what we learn about what's happening next as far as government intervention programs or really new programs being tested by the servicers. Guys, if you want to know where I learn all this stuff, it's from our HRCs who work for Titanium, because Titanium is trusted as Joel just said, as being the leader in providing outreach on behalf of the servicers. And so when you guys read about a new program that's being tested, chances are it's being tested through Titanium. So if you really want to get on the edge of what's happening in the real estate industry and this end of the real estate industry, and if Titanium's looking for a home retention counselor in your particular area, home retention counselor is basically an agent that works on behalf of Titanium to do the outreach to the troubled homeowners, then you absolutely should jump at that opportunity. But Joel, for the sake of our call, we're going to be focusing on short sales. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, good. So let's talk. You and I aren't working off a script, but Julie talked with you extensively yesterday, so she left me with the impression that we don't need a script, so let's find out, okay? So I'm going to ask you some tough questions. All right.
Sure.
Okay, so you work a lot with agents who are working a lot with troubled homeowners. I mean, that's basically an understatement, but that's your role. Where do you think, communication-wise, what are the mistakes that agents make when they initially list a short sale for an owner? What are the kinds of things that you hear that you want to clear the air about?
I would probably say the number one thing is setting expectations. And when I say that, I talk about timelines probably more than anything. These are not, your typical transaction that's going to close in a matter of, weeks. It may be a month. It may be up to 2 months. And so I think setting that expectation up front is probably the single biggest thing that I could suggest for the agent to get out there and discuss with the homeowner, when they've got them and are talking about that.
Well, so not just the expectation of the owner, but also the expectation of the realtor as far as how long the process is going to take, because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
And that too, these are not bang bang. They take some time. They're quite involved. The bank is taking a loss on the property, so there is negotiations involved. That is not something that's obviously done in a matter of a few days. Again, it's something that takes a while, and we here at Titanium are very equipped to deal with that, and we've done quite a few of these already. So it's something that we're definitely used to doing, and this is what we're here for.
So as far as you just said something, I actually was listening in on Julie doing a free coaching call yesterday, and actually, I think you had this conversation, Julie, yesterday 3 times with different realtors that needed extra help. But the essence of it was the realtors were frustrated because the bank hadn't accepted an offer that was based on BPO value, or they were negotiating over some finer points in the contract. And I remember listening to Julie saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, Harris Real Estate University student, you are forgetting that there is somebody on the other end of this transaction that's taking a huge loss. It's not just some big impartial servicer. All servicers do is essentially just that. They service loans on behalf of investors. And then, like, for example, Joel, I know you know this, but we interviewed an executive at Bank of America, and he said that they have 500 different investors that they service loans for. The finer point is that the agents didn't realize that the servicers are oftentimes, they're not just big, impartial, people that aren't feeling the pain of a loss. A lot of times these servicers, well, you tell us, who are the investors typically? What can they range from?
Well, obviously the big 2 are the government-sponsored entities, or GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They are the 2 biggest players and hold the majority of the notes that are in the market currently. And
they can also be, in some cases, the investor can be literally a teachers union, or it could be an investment fund, or it could be a pension fund. So when this process is a little bit slow, or a little bit, I'd say, maybe a little bit too cumbersome, it's because at the other end of these transactions, in a normal real estate transaction, back in the day, right, the seller was happy they were getting a check. The buyer was happy because they were getting a house and they thought the house was going to appreciate. Now it's like the seller's, getting rid of something that they perceive to be a problem, and the investor is having to swallow a bitter pill of having made that investment in the first place. So even though we've been teaching short sales for a long time, it's always important that you guys remember that there is someone at some point that is feeling the pain of this loss. And to understand, that's why it takes a little bit extra time. Julie, do you want to add anything to that since you were the one doing these calls?
Well, yeah, that usually stems from a couple of different things. The first level of that is agents, for some reason, kind of treat short sales like it's this wild animal, and there's no control, and there's just the bank counters, well, you're just done. It's over with. That's the end of the deal. So I get that a lot. And the other thing is agents will say, I can't believe that the lender did that. And they haven't thought that through, that, yeah, this is a real loss. And it's not just a matter of, running an offer up the flagpole and seeing what happens. There's a lot of negotiation that happens, and I think it's wise for agents to remember that you can, you negotiate for a living. I'm always saying that on calls, and not to give up. If somebody, our old broker used to say, as long as somebody wants to buy the house and the seller wants to sell the house, you've got a deal, and it's your job to figure out how to get it to close. So I still, to this day, hear too much of agents freaking out when they get a counteroffer from the lender.
Well, so, Joel, let's talk a little bit about how you and Titanium specifically deal with some of the finer points that cause havoc for agents, like seconds, tax liens, homeowners associations dues. How do you put all this together inside Titanium? And can you share with us some tricks, maybe?
Yeah, what we'll do is basically we will ask for documents that are necessary for said servicer, because every servicer has different requirements. We will get those documents. We will put them together. We will submit the file, and then we will follow up to make sure that the file is received, that it gets assigned, that a BPO is ordered, all the way through to the point of decision. And that can be either a counteroffer, an approval, or a denial, basically, at that point.
What services are you finding are the easiest to deal with right now?
Oh, you know what? I bet you know what? I bet you can this is going to blow your mind. Bank of America. And I'll tell you why. Because Equator, when Equator first came out, it had a real negative connotation, and I think it had a negative connotation because people were unfamiliar with it. Well, we are very familiar with it. And now that we're so familiar with it, I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We know exactly what to do on there. We know exactly where to go. And this is huge, Tim. We have a contact at Bank of America who is just simply outstanding. And when we come up against any kind of issue that she can resolve for us, she will absolutely do it. So I'd have to say Bank of America right now.
You know, actually, I'm hearing that across the board, so you're not alone in that. I mean, Bank of America has really, I think, gone way above and beyond to make the short sale process a lot smoother than it was before. So that doesn't surprise me in the least, to be honest with you. So as far as titanium goes, what you guys do for a lot of agents, I know you're working with a lot of Harris Real Estate University students, is you process short sales for them. In other words, you will take the file and from the agent, you know, obviously the agent's working hand in hand with you, work with the owner, work with all the lien holders, and get the short sale closed. Now, I'm going to do a little, I think, a little added information here. Ever since Julie and I started teaching short sales, now it seems like forever ago, we're the first, not bragging, just stating a fact. This is an odd thing to brag about if I were anyway. We're the first coaching company in the nation to start teaching agents how to do short sales. And I remember back in the day, Joel, it's kind of funny, I still laugh at it, that the number one question we had when we did this webinar was, what is a short sale? And now everyone knows what a short sale. I mean, everyone's talking about it. It's mainstream. But just, I'm sure you can remember, just 3 or 4 years ago, nobody knew what the heck a short sale was.
I would literally call, servicers and say, what do I need to get to you for a short sale? And they would say, what's a short sale? We would like our money, please. Thank you.
Exactly, that's right. So I think what we've seen in just the past 5 years is we've seen an evolution that's gone, it's just like a new product life cycle. It's gone from what the heck is a short sale to why do I need to do a short sale, and oh my gosh, this is a lot to learn how to do a short sale, and now it's like evolving into something completely different. So now what realtors are realizing, and I think the industry is realizing, a lot of the industry leaders, I think probably most vocal has been, well, of course, the National Association of Realtors advocates short sales often. We did an educational event with them last year about short sales. Dave Liniger from RE/MAX, he's certainly been very vocal about advocating short sales. So what's happened is our industry has now accepted short sales as probably one of the best opportunities in the real estate industry today. The interesting thing from my perspective is now that we've gone past the what the heck is it stage, there's an emergence of agents around the country that are doing dozens of these things a month, closing hundreds of short sales a year. One of the biggest issues that all of them have isn't getting them listed, because if we're being 100% straightforward and honest, getting short sales listed in most marketplaces when there's this many homeowners upside down is actually easy once you understand how to, attract the client to you through marketing, and once you know how to show the owner that that's going to be the best solution to avoid foreclosure. What happens next after the house sells is where a lot of agents struggle. And so we've been constantly contacted over the past few years from people that wanted to process short sales on behalf of our students, and we've always said no. It's definitely the number one request that we get from people that are wanting to have access to our students is, I want to close your short sales for you. So when we got contacted from Ken, who we've known for a long, long time and trust, and said, listen, Tim, you guys need to take a look at what we're doing over here at Titanium with closing short sales. I mean, honestly, it was Ken and I were exchanging emails, and I said, Ken, there's really not much anything to talk about. I know you. I trust you. If you're telling me you guys are going to be doing this, I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal. And that's the feedback that Julie and I have been getting. You guys are just doing a great job of it. All right, so I'm blithering here a little bit. My point is, if you're going to take your short sale business to the next level, and you, at some point, you're not going to be able to process them yourself. There's just going to be too many transactions for you to keep track of. It only makes sense that you're going to do one of two things. You're going to hire somebody internally inside your business, and maybe they know a little bit about short sales, or you're going to have to train them to know about short sales. Okay, so that means you're going to have to employ somebody, you're going to have to spend some money, you're going to have someone on staff, you're going to have to manage them, if they're an actual employee, you're going to have to deal with all the tax withholding stuff. all normal stuff, or you're going to have to find a trusted outsource to delegate the process to. Okay, so that's where Titanium comes in. Many of you who are listening to this call now in replay have been with us for a long time and are doing short sales in great numbers, or will be for at least the next 3 or 4 years. You need to seriously consider how you're going to expand your business if you're not going to expand, essentially, your closing services. Julie, how many files do we figure, back in the normal transaction, if an agent closed, 7 transactions for 2 months in a row, they should then hire an assistant, to basically close
generally, I would say 6 to 8. So your guesstimate of 7 is right on. That seems to be the speed limit of business, so to speak. And this is kind of a business maturity issue too, because a lot of agents are saying, well, help me understand why I would consider Titanium. Well, it's the speed limit of your business. How many transactions can you handle yourself or with your current team setup before you literally run out of time, energy, And I think for most semi-experienced agents, it's right around that 6 to 8 mark per month, especially if they're doing it very consistently. And literally you get to the point where you can't imagine doing another deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. So, Joel, let's talk about where Titanium comes into the transaction, because this is something else I really liked about what Ken and you guys put together. Where do you want, assuming that someone's going to use you guys as essentially their short sale processing assistant, at what point do they bring you into the relationship with the seller?
I would say that we ask for it at the point of listing, and we do that because some servicers that we deal with want to know up front when the property is listed so that they can actually be proactive and get a BPO done at that point. And then most servicers do not want to see the file until there's an offer on the property. But for our purposes here, we would like to see it at the point of listing so that, even at the point of listing, if something's not going, right with the, it's been on the market for a while, whatever, et cetera, we can actually go back to the agent and say, okay, here are some suggestions, marketing or what to do as far as getting an offer, and we would absolutely help with that.
Well, so that's a really simple point, but it's a really important point, and I'm going to repeat this. You are also, in conversation, you're also servicing, if necessary, the owner as well, correct?
Absolutely.
So what happens, guys, and this is the reason I really like what they're offering, is when you list the property, what they want you to do is they want you to fax, email, whatever, the file, the information on the owner over to Titanium. And then what happens is Titanium, the rep that's representing this becomes your assistant in processing the short sale. They also are going to be helping you service the owner. So if the owner has questions, you guys know how it is. I don't have to tell you. All those, heart palpitations you have about answering all the tough questions about this issue or that issue. Some of you, and this is probably guilty, most of you are probably guilty of this, have short sales right now that you haven't lowered the price on because you're trying to avoid the conversation with the owner about short sales, or you have short sales but you haven't lowered the price to get the house sold because you're nervous about your ability to handle the actual short sale transaction because you know it's going to be a complicated one. That's the reason you delegate it. That's the reason you use an outsource like Titanium.
Well, Tim, I'm going to jump in here. There are agents who are trying to manage the flow of their business by not reducing the price of their short sales because they can't imagine adding another negotiation to their plate. And to me, that's kind of malpractice with your seller because doesn't the seller expect you to get it done, and isn't the clock ticking on the road to foreclosure? So stop, for some of you, not all of you, but for some of you, stop trying to manage the flow of your business by not following through with the promise of what you promised when you listed it. It just doesn't make sense. So it goes back to that volume issue again.
So Fred Fernandez in Columbus, Ohio says, Tim, you coach don't pay third parties in your transaction for stuff you can do. Well, Fred, that's true, okay? So if you can do your own short sale transactions and closing your own files and you can do it at a volume that you're comfortable with, then you shouldn't delegate it. There's no two ways about it. So you're right. But if you're wanting to grow your business in Columbus, Ohio, where, as you know, Julie and I used to sell, and if you're wanting to maybe focus more on just taking the listings and servicing the listings, asking the sellers for referrals and all of that, then you might want to take a look at hiring a third party. Now, a lot of people, they're asking, how does Titanium get paid? How does Titanium get paid, Joel?
We get paid 25% of the listing side, So typically, in a normal sense, it's going to be 25% of the listing side, which is typically 3%, let's say.
Okay, so if you're putting pen to paper and you're trying to see if this makes sense, and I know if you're not doing a lot of units or if your average commission is relatively low, 25% is a lot. But if you could then make it so all you focused on was the lead generation side and taking the listing side of things, and you put all your emphasis and all your effort towards building a huge listing inventory, what you guys would find is that 25% is just the cost of doing business. I mean, again, if you're thinking about expanding your business and adding an assistant and a phone and a desk and the rest of it, you're going to have at least 25% that's going to go to hiring that assistant. That's the way it works. So, guys, think about this as business owners. And, again, if it's not a fit for you, of course it's not a fit for you, so you don't need to struggle with that. So, Joe, let's get back to some specifics. When you're dealing with why do the servicers, why will they reject a short sale? I mean, when the BPO comes in and the numbers make sense, what are the reasons that sometimes short sale offers are refused?
Well, I can tell you that, number one, it's an incomplete file. So there are a list of documents that a servicer typically requires. There's going to be a hardship letter. There's going to be authorization to release information form, etc. We know what servicers are looking for by servicer. We will get all that information on the front end. And so when we send a complete file to the servicer, that actually, more than anything, puts a priority on it there once it's in-house. So that's one reason that they get, that we have problems with. Another is, I hate to say it, but I'm just going to say it, a person getting so involved in the file that they're calling, once every day, once every, hour, it gets to the point, and I'm just saying, I'm speaking from experience here. The negotiators that get assigned these files are looking at about 200 to 500 files that they need to work on at any point in time. When they have somebody calling them for the same issue day in and day out, every hour on the hour, guess what? That file gets put on the back burner and gets put on the bottom of the file. That's a real big problem as well. But I think more than anything, it's an incomplete file. It's the intervention just maybe being a little too much. And value. Holy cow, value is a really big thing. We know how to deal with it here because these guys, they understand there's an underlying investor typically to these. The investors already have a portfolio of homes in that area. They know what the value is for this thing. So sometimes we're going to get an offer into them that's not going to jive with the value that they have. Well, at that point, we know exactly what to do. Hey, if there are structural issues with the home, we need to get estimates. Or things like that. Basically, whatever needs to be addressed at that point of value, we can get it done with the agent.
Well, so for example, let's say value comes in and the BPO is off, the bank thinks it's worth something, obviously the agent's BPO and the contract says it's worth another. Tell me what the process is.
We would get with the servicer to present, number one, we'd go to the agent to say, hey, we need a CMA, and we need a CMA that includes closed comps. We want to present that. Again, if there are structural issues, cosmetic issues, they really don't care about. They're only worried about structural issues. These are sold as is, just so everybody understands. You can't just submit an offer and then, after it's been submitted, say, oh, all these things are, with the carpet and it's got to be roof, it's got to be, beams, it's got to be, foundation, things like that. But again, when that happens, then we will go back to the agent and ask for this. We can submit that information, and more often than not, when that information is submitted, they will say, okay, we are amenable with taking another look at it and ordering another BPO.
Okay, so that right there, if there's a difference in the price, if there's a difference in the evaluation, you're saying that generally speaking it's going to be because when you go back and resubmit, you're going to have to show to the bank, well, this is the reason your BPO may have been off a little bit, right?
Correct.
This is the reason, yeah, and then you're saying basically emphasize the structural issues, not just the fact that it needs new carpet and wallpaper, but the fact that there might be some legitimate structural issues. And guys, Joe, what about, this doesn't happen as often as it used to, but what happens if there's just a plain, crazy BPO comes in on a property with no structural issues? How difficult is it for you to get the servicers to take a second look at it?
Well, I'll be honest, not very, and I'll tell you why. Again, we have contacts at all of the major servicers that we deal with, and in a case like that, we won't hesitate to go to our contact to get that taken care of.
Okay, so that's pretty simple. All right, so good. Now, there's been some questions, a lot of folks asking about the process. I know you guys are refining the short sale intake process now, but let's just talk specifically. So I go out and list a house today. It's a short sale. The owner, is indeed upside down. Let's say I do my job correctly, and they are having all the paperwork for the short sale sitting there waiting for me at the time I take the listing. So at that point, I submit the paperwork to Titanium. Am I correct here so far?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, so I fax it in or whatever. And then what happens next? Tell me the exact process. How do you guys communicate with me on a regular basis? How do you guys communicate with the owner on a regular basis?
We will have a conversation with the agent up front to say, okay, look, what would you like our involvement to be? What would you like your involvement to be? Some agents like to have they want to maintain that relationship with the homeowner as far as gathering docs. That's okay. We're okay with that. Some agents want to get the listing over to us and then have us contact the homeowner and do everything A to Z. We're okay with that too. Basically, once we get the file, we will assign it to a person here. Actually, not in Salt Lake. I'm in Salt Lake. Our folks in South Carolina will be assigned the file. They will contact you 24 to 48 hours from that point. Obviously, with your students, we're going to get that done probably that same day. And then from that point, again, we'll have that conversation. What is your role? What is my role? We will get all the information to the servicer, and we know exactly what to ask for. So we will get all that up front. We will put that file together, either in a PDF form or otherwise. Get that to them. Follow up. Again, I touched on this. Make sure it was received. Make sure it gets a BPO done. Make sure it gets assigned. And basically, we want to get that thing to the point of approval for the agent.
Okay, good. So when you're messing with the realtor's transaction, you're messing with their income, you're messing with their, ability to pay their own bills. And I know that sometimes can be a very emotional process for some realtors, letting go of the transaction just because because they have a lot tied to it. How do what advantages, just off the top of your head, from an agent's perspective, would using you be over just doing it themselves? Why do I want to use you? Yeah.
I can tell you that, we all have real estate mortgage backgrounds. I myself, I come from a commission salesperson background in the mortgage industry. I used to work for Countrywide. Obviously, we know, again, what docs are needed specifically by servicer. We're very familiar with Equator. Definitely, we know the ins and outs of that. B of A, GMAC, NationStar, they're all using Equator, and we know Equator inside out. We know what questions to ask, when to ask them is very important because timelines are crucial. We understand, hey, when we're dealing with this servicer, we know after we've sent the file in when it should be assigned, when a BPO should be ordered, etc. And we know that by servicer. And you know what? Finally, I'd say what sets us apart is we have bank contacts. The contacts that we have been cultivated over time. It's not something that was handed to us. We've gone to great lengths to make sure that these relationships are good. And in fact, if I send an email or make a call to somebody at any of the servicers that we deal with, the major servicers that we deal with here, I get a response, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, probably within 15 to 20 minutes every darn time. And that's saying something. And I know for a fact, if I send an email, these guys are looking at it, and I'm getting responses in about 5 minutes. It's insane. But that's really what sets us apart is when we come up against something on a file, we're not going to do the back and forth. We're going to go to our contact and say, here's the situation. How do we handle it?
So what you're alluding to is you're not dealing with the inexperienced negotiator. You're dealing with the manager. You're dealing with somebody higher up right out of the gates. Is that a correct statement, or am I overstating it?
I think when we're dealing with negotiators, there's levels of proficiency. Some are good, some are not. When we come across somebody maybe who's necessarily not up to speed, we will absolutely in that instance go to our contact and say, here's the situation. And again, it's something where they will probably be told by management, hey, look, this is what we got to do. We understand the situation. And so I think more than anything, it's not so much, because we come across quite a few negotiators on the front end who are new, overwhelmed, etc. So, I'd say that, our contacts are invaluable in a circumstance like that.
All right, good. So in the process of when you don't have, because do you have your ratios? Do you guys know what % you close as far as submitted transactions from realtors?
I pulled that. It was for the year-end 2010. It was 83%.
Okay. So the ones that didn't close, why?
I would say that there's a couple of reasons. We got the file at the 11th hour, and there was a foreclosure date. That's a big one.
Yep.
And we just simply were not able to get that foreclosure stopped. There are a lot of things. Value, again, if it's something that we dispute and the investor just simply puts their foot down, it's resolute. We're not going to be able to get very far with that. So I would say probably those two items.
What about PMI companies? How are those? Some of our top producing guys that are selling 100-plus short sales per year. Seems like every 6 months or so, PMIs flare up as being a problem to getting these things closed. How do you guys deal with them? Doesn't it seem like that?
Well, those, and I'd also say, HOAs, boy, they can be little bulldogs, and they will try to hold the files hostage. But here's a really important thing I think to say. When it gets to that point, we'll go back to the agent and say, look, the posture that we need to take is going to be a really firm posture. Does that necessarily put everybody at ease? No, it probably puts everybody on edge, because you're basically going back to the servicer to say, look, I know what you want, but they want ice water and hell. You're not going to get it. Here's what we're offering you. We know it's a market value. We know it's good, and this is what we're gonna roll with. Now right off the bat, they're going to say, typically they're going to say, well, it isn't good enough. Too bad. Bye bye. Guess what? A week, 3 days, whatever later, they're calling back to us and saying, okay, it looks good. We should probably go forward with it.
Okay, good. So I'm getting a lot of really great questions, and I was just going through the questions. Robert from Clovis, who sends in the authorization letter to the lender, Titanium, the realtor, or both?
Your choice. I mean, typically, like I said, we would probably want to do that on our end so that, we know it's done, obviously, and we can definitely let you know, hey, look, this needs to be on the authorization, it needs to be dated, or whatever. Probably, we feel better if we did it, but it's the agent's choice, really.
Well, I know you're trying to, the way you answer these questions, I know you're dealing with a lot of, I suspect a lot of agents that aren't doing short sales in volume have an oversensitivity to who's doing what and when it's done, just because their income is so tied to it. Yeah. And it's interesting, too. I imagine the top producing agents that are doing lots of these, they're probably easier to deal with because they're a lot more comfortable delegating because they have a lot more short. Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Tim. Absolutely right.
And guys, that's the thing I want you to get your minds around, okay? If you are still stuck in the paradigm that, 5 or 6 listings is an okay number in this marketplace, I really want you to challenge yourself on that, because the simple fact is, and I don't care what market you're in. Now, obviously, there's some exceptions, but 99% of the country, the market's all about short sales. If you read our blog on a regular basis, you'll know that is just getting worse. The number of upside-down owners is just becoming more of a problem, not less of a problem. So I want to challenge again all of you to expand your thinking and really to consider having 20 listings. Now, 10 listings, whatever your number is, but double it, triple it this year. There are so many owners out there that would love to avoid a foreclosure, and frankly, so many owners out there that would love to work with you if you just present to them the fact that you can help them with a short sale. Now, again, we have been teaching agents how to do short sales, and I know a lot of you guys have become really proficient at it. What would happen if all of a sudden you were to take the negotiation piece off your table? What would that leave? I mean, how much extra time would you have? You know, Julie did some short sale processing math, and Julie, if you want to present that, that's fine. But I've actually got some more questions I want to go through first. All right,
and Tim, what if you delegated even half of your short sales? How much extra time would you have to go get more listings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the bottom line. All right, so I'm going to go through some of these more of these questions. All right, so okay, this is just a comment from Savvy in Pennselsvania. Hey, guys, I can hear you very clearly, and now part of Titanium as an HRC. Thanks, Harris Real Estate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I've been using, some comments about the fact that they love Equator. Okay, here's a good one. Donna asked a great question. She said, I'm just going to read it like she wrote it. Bank of America HAFA process is a nightmare, 6 to 8 weeks for HAFA approval, not even counting approving a short sale itself. How does Titanium handle HAFA at BOA? And before I let Joel answer that question, there was a report that came out, and I put it on the blog 2 weeks ago, Donna, and everybody else, that said so far the total number of HAFA short sales that have happened in the country has been, I don't remember the exact number, but it was only... Yeah, it wasn't very many, like 700 or, I don't know, Julie, we should find that so I don't misquote it.
I think it was like 630 or 633, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so what's happened basically is HAFA laid the framework for a lot of these servicers creating their own HAFA-like program. And Donna, listen to the interview we did with the Bank of America executive, because what he essentially was, what Alan Seelenbinder was essentially saying is, you know, we've kind of taken some of the best of breed HAFA elements and we've applied it to our own system. And so this new cooperative short sale program that everyone's talking about now, that we told you guys about last summer from Bank of America, that really is their breed of HAFA. But answering the question specifically, Joel, have you guys done any HAFAs?
Yes.
Okay, and so, I mean, Dan, what's your experience with getting HAFAs approved?
I think you alluded to the fact that there are not a really big number that have been approved, and we've experienced that here. Now, we have had a few that have been approved, but considering the numbers that we've given for them to scrub, it's minuscule. And when we do come up against a delay in the process because of HAFA eligibility determination on their end, we basically go back to the agent at that point and say, look, you probably should have a conversation with the homeowner that, you know, this is not going to be a short process. It's going to add quite a bit of time to the process. Would you like to continue? We're probably going to be looking at more time now involved with this, and put that decision on them. There's some good points, obviously, to HAFA. You know, there's the forgiveness of the deficiency and whatnot, but relocation costs. Again, it needs to be tempered with the fact that very, very few of these are getting passed and through. So I think, from our perspective, it's really a matter of we know it's going to be time consuming, and we know it's going to add. It's just going to compound the time involved to get these things closed. So I think at that point, again, it really needs to be just put back on the homeowner to say, look, this is the deal. It's going to be a little longer if we do this through HAFA. If not, we're probably looking at getting this done quicker for you.
Well, how are you guys working with the threat of deficiency judgments? I asked the Bank of America guy that if he knows of any of the 500, I think he said 503 or 13 or whatever it was, investors they work with, and he said he knows of none that are pursuing deficiency judgments. And I know you probably are working with other investors. Are you experiencing the same thing?
In my 3.5 years here at Titanium Solutions, I have not seen one instance where they've pursued a deficiency judgment. Now, that's not to say that they won't reserve the right to have the language included in an approval when at the point of approval, because they absolutely will reserve that right. And I know that Chase, they stand out more than anybody to me they are very they're more willing to have the deficiency waived at the point of approval than probably any other servicer that we deal with. It's state specific as well, and I was telling this to Julie yesterday. You know, California, if you have a loan that was a purchase money loan, obviously you can't pursue a deficiency at that point if you're a servicer. It really is a matter of us asking the question and them basically, again, it's I mentioned this yesterday to Julie as well. It's trending really to the point that they are not willing to they're not willing to say on the approval in writing, hey, we're waiving the deficiency and we're absolving, you of this debt. More so what we just talked about, they will get the language in the approval, but there hasn't been one and I've done literally hundreds of these files. There's not been one instance where I've seen that the servicer has then gone back to pursue a deficiency. It's like throwing good money at bad money. They're not going to do it.
Because it costs too much to actually go after it. What Alan yeah, exactly. What Alan suggests was that he was making a big statement, but I think if you read between the lines, he has in essence said if the servicer is getting something at closing, even if it's just a little, couple $100 or whatever it's going to be. Sometimes servicers ask for, if the owner has assets, they'll ask for them to make an unsecured line of credit contribution, that kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about. But they'll drop the deficiency language. He said on this call that it's not difficult with most of their servicers to get the deficiency language removed from the letter. But, then he kind of underlined the fact that, look, no one's pursuing them for the exact reason that you just said, because it just doesn't make economic sense for them to. Dave asked a good question. What about second mortgages along with the first? I mean, are you guys dealing with all aspects of the short sale or just dealing with the first?
Let me answer it by saying we have a file right now that we're working that has a first, second, and I believe a third and 4 different types of judgments. So, we're equipped to handle basically anything that is attached to the real property. We're very, equipped and able to get those taken care of and done as well.
Okay, a few questions are all asking the same thing. What is the time frame for getting a short sale closed, generally speaking? Assuming it was submitted to you when they took the listing and everything was done correctly, right? So you guys aren't coming in at the last minute trying to save the day.
I think for our purposes, I wouldn't probably give you that idea from the point of listing, rather from the point of offer. And I'd say from the point of offer, we're looking at 30 to 60 days typically. There are a few servicers that stand out in my mind that will get it done in a matter of weeks. But generally speaking, it's going to be 30 to 60 days.
Okay, good. And I like that. That was a good, because really at that point, up to the point of getting an offer, that's really the agent's job. And frankly, that's our job as the agent's coach to make sure they're getting offers on their properties. I appreciate that distinction. Joyce from New Jersey, and I had this question probably a dozen different ways, is people want to, she's asking about the fee, and they charge 25% of the listing commission. So if it's a 6% listing, which 99.9% of these should be at least 6%, they're going to charge 25%. All right, then her second question was, I answered that one for you, is they want to know, a lot of agents are asking, how are they communicated with and how are the owners communicated with? That service aspect of it, obviously we've talked with you guys about this a lot, is extremely important. Tell us, the most communication they can get. If someone says, I want to use you guys, I want you guys to, give it the full Monty service end of things,
right.
Pull out all the stops. I want to have as little to do with this short sale process as possible. I just want to go out and focus on listing properties. You guys become essentially taking care of the whole process once it's in contract. What should they expect? How often are they going to hear from you the rest of it?
I think that when we have the initial conversation with the agent, we can definitely establish that. If it's the agent's wish that we get with them, X amount of times in a week, I think we can come to an agreement on that. If typically what we'll do is we'll get with the agent once a week for an update, and anything that occurs in between, any kind of communication that we have with the servicer, obviously we'll get that information over to them as well. But it's typically once a week. But again, if it's something that the agent wants to have a little more communication on, we're able to accommodate their requests. As far as how we get the information to them, right now we're working on getting a portal. We're calling it a portal, and it's going to basically get us a fast track to the servicers. Number one, with these files, and number two, it's going to allow the agent to go onto the website and access where it's at any given point in time. So right now, as it stands, we would get with the agent email, phone, that kind of thing. But again, we are in the midst of getting that up to speed so that once we have that, it's going to be a great thing for everybody.
So as far as communication goes, you would provide the communication to the agent. You'd want the agent to provide the communication to the owner, or would you guys be willing? Are you guys set up to do the communication for both parties?
We can gather documents from the homeowner. We can gather the documents from the agent who gets them from the homeowner. Whatever we'll do as little or as much as the agent wants us to do. Again, I know you alluded to this. These are hard to come by. They're very, your agents work very hard to get these, and we understand if they want to be, part of the process in whatever way that they want to do. So more than likely, it's them gathering the documents from the homeowner to keep that relationship going. But we have no problem with. And this is what we do with some of the more top volume agents. They'll just give us the listing and say, "Here, go to it." So we're equipped to do anything, and from the point of gathering documents for the homeowner or not.
So what I'm hearing you say basically, and I'm sure this has been the experience, when you start working with a new agent, a new client to you guys, maybe someone that's not done a lot of short sales, they're probably for the most part going to be more service. They're going to demand more attention than say someone that's used you guys a bunch of times and they're more confident how you work. Right. I'm sure that's the way it works, right? Yeah. So as both parties just sort of become more comfortable with each other. And again, guys, this is or isn't a fit for you. And I would suggest that depending on where you are in your business cycle, Julie and I want you to become aware and knowledgeable, if not doing a few yourself, short sale closings first. But the other thing you can do is you still can follow that HREU rule of knowing how the process works by working with Titanium. And then, obviously, you increase your likelihood of getting the process or the transaction closed. You guys have to think about this from not so much of a me perspective, as in, my commission and my transaction, my this and that, the other. What about your owner? Do you increase or decrease the likelihood of that owner actually being able to sell the house and avoid a foreclosure, having somebody like Joel on the other end of the transaction versus maybe you who have not done enough yet to feel a high level of comfort? It's okay if you hire an assistant. It's okay if you work in tandem with Titanium to understand the process so that when you're out listing more properties, you can then, when you get those tough questions, you can easily answer those questions. You can say something like, well, you know what? This is something that Joel over at Titanium will be talking with you about once we list the property, but here's the short answer, that sort of thing. So what these guys are is essentially your assistant to closing your short sale transactions. That's really the best way to think of it. All right, so more great questions. A lot of HRCs, by the way. I would say just looking at these questions, probably about half of our students on this call are HRCs. All right, a real quick question from Angie in Costa Mesa. Can an investment property go HAFA? Joel?
No, it cannot.
Yeah, no. All right. So, all right, interesting. Marcia Moody from Santa Rosa, California. I thought BOA would put a short sale through HAFA first. Is this true?
Can you repeat the question, Tim?
Well, that's actually it. Her question was: does BOA, does Bank of America run all short sales through sort of a HAFA qualifying process, then deciding what to do with them? Is everything treated as a potential HAFA first?
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, guys, is they won't tell you when it's been turned down for HAFA. Sometimes they'll just move it from HAFA eligibility onto the normal short sale process. And we touched on a lot of the reasons why a HAFA short sale wouldn't be granted, but can you kind of repeat some of those reasons, Joel, like why someone wouldn't qualify for a HAFA?
Someone wouldn't qualify for HAFA if, their debt to income was at a rate that they weren't okay with. If it's an investor if it's somebody that's got assets, really their financial situation really dictates a lot of that.
Georgia from California asks, can you please explain what HAFA is? We have a lot of new people in the office. We have a lot of people that listen to these calls every Friday on conference, so I appreciate that. So, Joel, you want to handle that one?
Again, I alluded to probably the two main points is you are your deficiency is forgiven, okay, number one, and number two, it's really let me add another point. They will actually tell the agent it's half a short sale how much they either want to net or how much to list the property for. So that's kind of an advantage for the agent because, it may be a case of, I don't know where to put this price-wise, and they tell you exactly where it needs to be. But I would say the deficiency forgiveness and the relocation expense, you can get, gosh darn it, was it $5,000 to $8,000, Tim? I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah, that's right. So the bottom line, what the thing is, Joel, is really the advantages of HAFA, I think, are kind of being diluted because a lot of the servicers have taken on their own version of HAFA. But we did a HAFA training, and there's two videos that are right on the home page of the blog. We did them, last, I think, June, maybe, May, I don't remember. In any event, if you want to watch the HAFA training videos, just go to timandjulieharris.com and just watch the HAFA videos. If you want to get HAFA forms, just go to HAFAforms.com. We set that up last year as well, so that'll kind of cover all the bases. Tina from Corona asked a very interesting and elegant question. And Tina, here's what I'm going to do opposed to asking your question. I'm going to ask Joel to give his phone number. Joel?
Yes, it's I am happy to do this. I will give you my direct line. My direct line is 801-746-6736.
Okay, and so yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and my email is JRAMIREZ@titaniuminc.com.
So it seems that Tina has an approved HAFA short sale through Bank of America, and she's having some issues with it, I think, the second. So, Tina, call Joel and see if he can help you out. I'm sure he can.
Certainly.
All right. So, okay. Marcia is from Santa Rosa is asking a question. Marcia, you are correct if it's a purchase money loan. It says California law now tells us that. That she's right. If a lender approved a short sale on the first loan, the lender cannot do a deficiency judgment. Any comments on that? I think it's basically right.
Is she referring to the new law that was passed there in California?
I assume, yeah.
Okay. SB 931, I believe, is what it is. Yeah, she's actually right about that.
Yep. Okay, so Deborah asked, maybe a different Deborah, 25% of the listing side. No, it's 25% of the listing side, not of the total commission.
Correct. So typically 25% of 3%, not 6%. Correct.
I'm just reading. Julia, any other questions? I know you're.
Well, it's funny. I have an assortment of email coming to me from a lot of our top-producing REO students who are used to cranking a lot of volume, and they're putting pieces together going, maybe I ought to get back into short sales. Because a lot of those guys doing tons and tons of REOs sort of put short sales on the back burner so they can handle all that REO business. Now I've got 4 or 5 of them right now in my email saying, I'm going to take a look at Titanium because now I can actually see handling, layering that spoke on top of my REOs. So that's kind of interesting.
Gary Custer. Gary, you asked a question. You're going to force me to put on my coaching hat here, opposed to my interviewer hat. He says, what if you receive an offer on a short sale? Julie, you want to handle this one? And the offer is very low. Seller feels they don't want to accept. Julie, they don't want to accept because it's lower than the CMA value. How should this be handled?
Counter it. Get it up higher.
Julie, but also, it's a short sale.
Well, this begins with counseling the seller why they would even care what the price is. So it really starts at the time you took the listing. So there's probably something going on with seller psychology with the agent there and who's driving the ship. So a couple different things going on there, but ultimately counter it, get it as high as you can, and don't get too worried about that. I'm not sure why the seller cares where you end up.
Yeah, you guys have to remember that's the beauty. Well, one of the beautiful things about a short sale is the seller doesn't pay your commission. right? The seller should have virtually no emotional tie to the transaction, really. The old days of having to arm wrestle with the seller for a price change shouldn't be an issue. Matter of fact, part of the HREU system is we ask you guys to have essentially pre-ordained, pre-agreed to price changes when you take the listing. Okay, depending on your MLS, will dictate how far you can go with that. But the goal here, guys, is, well, every 2 weeks or 10 showings, if you don't have an offer, you should lower it. A lot of you are waking up to 2011 not really knowing what's going on in your marketplace. I'm going to give you a quick snapshot. For the most part, homes are depreciating in your marketplace. Go in and do a quick CMA, an absorption study, and you guys are going to find that 1, 2, 3% of property value is still being lost, and that's probably going to be true for the next, I'm guessing, 6 months. Now, we do think there's going to be some sort of bottoming of the real estate markets the second half of this year into 2012. What will that mean? It'll mean that essentially there won't be any more significant depreciation, but there will not be a rebound or a bounce in values. They're going to kind of bubble at the bottom for a long period of time. So short sales is going to be here to stay. All right, here's a great question. Deborah, I'm going to give this one to you, Joel. Bank of America Co-op are releasing the deficiency, but how are they handling the 1099? Is the loss taxable? So I guess the question is also exposing a misunderstanding with regards to the 1099. So let me rephrase your question. Joel, does everyone get a 1099?
Not everyone gets a 1099, and I'd love to tell you how they make that determination, but I couldn't tell you. It's probably legally. Barely.
Having asked several accountants this, legally they're supposed to, Deborah, everyone's supposed to get a 1099, but believe it or not, the banks aren't sending 1099s for everyone they do a short sale with. It's a clerical error on the bank's end of things. Last year we interviewed a really great accountant. Julie, what was her name? Do you remember? It's a superstar interview.
I know. I'm trying to have to look
Google
it up.
Google superstar.
She's in the interview lineup for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, she's in the interview lineup. So anyway, you guys can listen to that. And she was explaining that she does a lot of short accounting for people who've gone through short sales, and a lot of them haven't received 1099s. Now, technically, everyone's supposed to get a 1099.
Right.
And as far as the taxable loss on that property, guys, or as far as the taxes owed on that, for the most part, no one's going to owe any taxes on it because of the law that Bush signed into office essentially right before the administration's changed. Now, just FYI, that runs out. Assuming it doesn't get renewed, that runs out the Tax Debt Forgiveness Act. I'm not getting the name correctly, so forgive me.
That's right.
Yeah, but at the end of next year, okay? So, guys, be aware of that. So, Deborah, hopefully I've answered your question. All right. Okay, this is interesting. Rachel from Huntington Beach. Would the servicer accept a lower price for a property if it is a regular short sale rather than a half-approved short sale? Kind of an interesting, exposing question, too, I think. What do you think?
No. Oh, boy. Geez, that's hard to answer. I've seen it both. Boy. Man, that is a really good, that's probably the best question so far. It's hard to put our finger on that. Gosh, sometimes, like I said, we have had a few short sales come through, and sometimes the value that they pay on that is not necessarily what the agent was expecting, nor were we by looking at the CMA that they had presented to us. So that, boy,
who knows?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's
okay. We'll leave that one out there as a depends. Okay, a lot of people asking about the commission. Guys, and the referral fee. The bottom line is all of you are asking about that. It's a great question. It's 25% of the 3%, the listing side only, not of the total commission. Evidently.
And can I interject there too, Tim?
Yeah.
What a lot of our agents will do as well is just split it with that part of it, that 25%. They'll split that with the other agent that's involved in the transaction.
Yeah, that's what happened. I've seen that happening, of course. That's very common. June from Punta Gorda, Florida, she said basically she's asking about the time that a servicer has after a short sale or even a foreclosure. And June, make sure you're clear on that. It's not just a short sale. It's a short sale, deed in lieu of foreclosure, how long in that particular state they have to pursue a deficiency judgment. And June, we've kind of addressed that, but I'm just going to underline this. Personally, we've not seen any. Julie and I call Hope for Homeowners at least once a month and asking if they're seeing any deficiency judgments. We asked the Bank of America guys if he's seeing any deficiency judgment, and now we're hearing from Titanium, who's arguably the nation's largest, outsource for processing short sales. Okay, nobody has seen any deficiency judgments. Now, will there be in the future? There could be, but there probably won't be, because as another student pointed out, the math just doesn't make sense. If the way it essentially works, guys, let's say if there's a deficiency judgment or loss to the servicer of, say, $50,000, I'll keep the math easy, right? What typically will happen, let's say, if they forgave $50,000, is that, technically they could pursue that owner for a deficiency judgment. Now, let's say they hire an attorney, they go to court, they get a deficiency judgment against that borrower, assuming the borrower doesn't, or the former borrower doesn't contest it, assuming they don't hire their own attorney, assuming that basically it just sails through. No contest deficiency judgment. I'm not a lawyer, so whatever the term is. Then what happens? Just because the servicer gets a deficiency judgment doesn't mean they automatically get the money. They then will sell the deficiency judgment. Hypothetically, this is how it traditionally works. They'll sell it to somebody else for, as a student pointed out, 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. So the way the servicer looks at it is, how much time does it take for us to get the judgment? How much money is it going to take for us to get it? What is the likelihood of us being able to sell it to somebody who wants to collect on it? It just economically, it does not seem to make sense. And I think, guys, as long as the economy is looking like it is, and frankly, can you imagine the stink that would happen if all of a sudden it came out that, whoever bank was starting to pursue deficiency judgments against these troubled homeowners? Again, if it's in the acceptance letter, they have a right to pursue it, but so far no one has seen any evidence of that. Do we coach you to have the deficiency judgment language removed? Yes. Okay. Can you get it removed every single time? No. But we give you techniques for doing that. That's part of the education you get here.
And should you lose a deal over it? No.
Heck no.
And I hear that every week. I would have gotten it done, but my seller refuses to sign it because the deficiency judgment is still there. Stop doing that.
Yeah, because
that's not a reason to lose the deal.
A deficiency judgment threat is still there in a foreclosure or a deed of lieu of foreclosure. It doesn't go away. All right, so, okay. Julie, you see any other good questions I saw?
Eric Reed wants to know if there is a minimum amount of transaction. Do you have a certain price range that you say we don't do those below that price?
The whole price.
No. And in fact, we actually, Florida is a good example of that. We do quite a few in Florida. They've got values that are not really up to speed with the rest of the nation, and we do quite a few in Florida.
Yeah, so no is the answer. Okay, all right, so a lot of HAFA questions, interesting. Can someone decline for a HAFA last year reapply now under the new guidelines, because the guidelines were just updated just recently? Do you know anything about that, Joel? I assume they can.
You know what, I honestly do not know that.
I assume they can. Why wouldn't they be able to? But I bet you that the reasons that they're declined on, you know what, you're thinking in terms of the ratios. The whole 31% is no longer relevant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That is a good point. You should go ahead and try to resubmit it under HAFA. Remember, guys, when you're submitting any file, and I'm sure Joel will back me up on this, on any paperwork to the servicer, you've got to write the loan number on every single document. And when you're initiating a short sale that you want to go HAFA, you have to write on every single document, at least to the initial stages, the loan number and the fact that the seller is requesting a HAFA short sale. That way the negotiator can't say they didn't know. Okay, I know Wells Fargo, Dave mentions Wells Fargo, or Dave, this next question asked about Wells Fargo, so that got me thinking about that, because I know Wells Fargo is moving people from HAFA to the normal process without really letting anyone know. Well, at least they were doing that last year. How is Wells Fargo to work with in the first and the second with this? Basically, that's the question. What's your experience with working with Wells?
You know what? Pretty good, actually. As far as escalating an issue with our contact at Wells, she's awesome. So no problems with Wells.
These contacts you guys have with the servicers, that's really a huge reason that folks should consider working with you guys.
And you know what, too? Our company obviously does loss mitigation, where we send out our agents, to see the homeowners that are in arrears. When we get resulting short sales from them, we give them the option, and we give the agent at that point, we give them the option, hey, you can work the short sale yourself, or you can hand it over to us, and we have a department that's very capable of doing that. What happens, a lot of times is the agent is going to say, I'm taking the reins on this thing. I'm doing that. I may not necessarily be, proficient at it, but I'm going to do it. And, a few weeks later, they're calling me saying, Joel, I can't, this thing is taking so much of my time. It's unbelievable. I can't even do anything else. And can you do this for me? And a lot of it's trial and error with our agents that they say, you know what, I'm going to do it. They get to a point where they just say, you know what, I can't do it. I've got other things to do. And at that point, they'll get it to us, and we're very capable of taking it and running with it at that point.
Joel, do you have problems getting 6% commission when the loan is not Fannie or Freddie?
Absolutely not, and that's a guideline that we know Fannie and Freddie have that cannot be reduced.
But when it's not a Fannie or Freddie, that's what the question. Patty Green was
when
asking.
It's not, you know what? Believe it or not, we have not had a problem. And I know that this was a trend. When I first started, it was really a trend for them to want to go after that commission and cut it. But I'm just not seeing that these days right now.
Yeah, trend is the good word for it, too, because there are a lot of strange trends that pop up occasionally. All right, so, guys, I'm going to start asking some of the last questions, and we're going to wrap this call up. Joel's obviously got a lot to do, and he's been very generous with his time. Julie, is there any other questions that popped up at you that I should ask that we haven't asked already?
I think you've covered most of this stuff. I think the point that we need to make is that we're not saying you absolutely must use titanium. We're presenting to you a great option for handling more volume, for having a greater ease of your short sales. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. There are competitors coming into the market for all of our students today who came from other businesses and are actually saying, I don't want to learn how to do a short sale, but I'll learn how to list them, and I'll just hand them over to somebody like Joel at Titanium. So that's one way to look at your business. Another way to look at your business would be maybe you want to handle short sales for your own past clients and you want that level of hand-holding, but you're going to delegate everything else to Titanium. Maybe you're somebody whose goal is to do a deal a month or a couple deals a month and you don't even need Titanium. That's fine. These are options for all of you. We encourage you to have multiple spokes in your wheel, multiple things, multiple pipelines. And all of that's going to add up to more volume. So at a certain point, you're going to say, how am I going to manage all that? This is one of those solutions. That's why it's called Titanium Solutions, right, guys. It's to help you move to the next level. That's all.
What we know is that a lot of you guys, when you've been avoiding, no, I'm not going to say everyone on this call, because a lot of folks on this call, the hundreds of you on this call, a lot of you are longtime Harris Real Estate University students. So you guys have, you guys got it a long time ago. But for the rest of you who are listening to this call now and in replay, and you've been, for whatever reason, it doesn't really even matter anymore, you've been delaying, procrastinating, avoiding short sales, and your reason for wanting to avoid it is because, you've heard someone tell you about this, you've heard someone tell you about that, or you heard that the process is this or that. Guys, really, and this is something that Julie says, and it's so true. In a lot of ways, you really are practicing malpractice with your real estate license, right? Just like a doctor who's giving bad prescriptions. You have to understand the process because it's inevitable that you're going to run across folks that need your help. Something like in the country right now, there's 10 million people that are upside down. And the statistic, again, this is on the blog. You guys, you analytical guys, you like to check my numbers. Go right ahead, timandjulieharris.com. The statistic was that if prices depreciate another 5% in the country, the number of upside down owners will go to something like 12 or 13 million. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So how big is that number? In some markets, that is the market. If you're in Vegas, okay, there's my extreme example. If you're in, Inland Empire, if you're in Central California, if you're in certain parts of, Columbus, Ohio, if you're in, you guys know what I'm talking about, in certain Arizona, East Coast, you are going to be dealing with owners for, some of you, the rest of your real estate careers that are upside down. You have to know how to do a short sale. So once you get it, once you have that light bulb go off in your head and you realize there's vastly fewer agents chasing underwater owners and you realize that you can get 6% and you realize the owners won't fight with you about the commission, they won't fight with you about the price, they won't ask you to do a zillion open houses, they won't ask you to do a bunch of ads, and then when you realize that you can essentially delegate really what is the hardest part of the process, the negotiation, the acceptance, and communicating with the seller, answering all the seller's questions. When you put all these pieces together, in our real estate industry right now, aside from REOs, is there a better opportunity? Tell me, because I don't know about it. And this relationship that Harris Real Estate University and Titanium Solutions now has, this is essentially offering you guys the best of breed of what's out there right now. Believe me when I tell you, we get bombarded with people wanting us to send our students to them to close short sales, and I always have said no. As of Julie, Titanium is the only company we've ever said yes to, and you just heard from Joel, and you understand why. The team that they have assembled and are assembling and the systems they're putting together to handle short sales, guys, is going to be, in my mind, the industry's best leading short sale processor. Now, we didn't talk about this on the call, and I'm not gonna, but I'm going to give you a little heads up. Direct assignment short sales are coming, and in many cases they're here and now. That's where the servicer goes and reaches out to the owner on their own. Some of you guys who are HRCs know what I'm talking about. And then what happens is that owner is told that they have been pre-selected, pre-approved, where the language is, to do a short sale. And then Titanium is going to be assigning those pre-approved short sales directly to agents, okay? So the servicers are embracing short sales at a level now that they are absolutely positively trying to get owners not to do strategic defaults, because that's the big fear now. Another statistic that came out that said 25% of all foreclosures last year were strategic, people walking away. All right, that's an enormous number. So servicers realize that. They're going after the owners directly that they deem to be most likely to walk away, and they have algorithms for that, of course. And then they're using Titanium, guys, and hopefully I'm not going to get a call from Titanium telling me I shouldn't have let the cat out of the bag on this, but they're using Titanium and I suppose some others then to send out agents to collect paperwork and then to get the properties listed. That is the world that we find ourselves in. It's a strange parallel universe, certainly to the bubble market that a lot of you guys got your real estate licenses and came up in, but you hopefully are seeing what a huge opportunity this is. Titanium, use them or you don't. It's up to you. Harris Real Estate University students, listen to what we're saying today, or you don't. It's up to you. It depends on what you want out of your real estate business and what you want your rest of your real estate career to be like. So, Joel, I really appreciate your time on the call today, and I know you did a call with Julie yesterday, so I really appreciated that too. Anything you'd like to say in closing to all the agents out there?
I'd like to say that I've been on the Harris University website, and there is a treasure trove of information on there. It almost puts ours to shame. It's unreal. I think everybody really needs to take advantage of that. You, Julie, Rochelle, you guys are just walking wealth of knowledge. I think everybody benefits from what you have to offer. Our partnership is definitely something that I think can help the students, and we're here to help. I'm always accessible. You can call or email me anytime. Don't feel like you can't get with me because it's a question that you may think is dumb. There is no such thing. Get with me, call me, please get a hold of me. I'm very good at follow-up. Julie knows that, and let's see what we can do for you.
That's right. And guys, if you want to get hold of Joel and if you want to get hold of Titanium Solutions, and this is if you're a Titanium HRC or not, how can they do it?
I'll give you my direct line again, 801-746-6736, or my email is Ramirez, JRAMIREZ, @titaniuminc.com. Okay, give the phone number one last time. Your phone started to go all digital. I'm sorry, 801-746-6736. Okay, so all of you guys that are sending in these questions about your short sales, call Joel, okay? Fill up his voicemail. Yes, please. I welcome that. Yeah, so call Joel, and you're going to find that probably working with Titanium as essentially your short sale processing assistant, whatever you want to refer to them as. In the listing presentation, you could call them your short sale concierge, your in-house expert. Just think of the different ways you guys could use the tool of having somebody by your side who has got this level of experience and contact when you're listing short sales. And this is really, if you think about it, guys, this is a really fantastic way to go about showing owners of upside-down homes why they should list with you versus your competition. I know a lot of you are getting it right now. I feel light bulbs going on across the country. Call Joel, learn what they have to offer, and then send them a short sale or 2 or 10. Find out if it's a good fit for you. Oh, and I'm going to say this, just because I know I'm going to get some cranky email from somebody after this call.
Joel, you may or may not know this, but Titanium is paying us nothing for this relationship, okay? And we're paying Titanium nothing. There's no money that's exchanging hands. There's no referral fee, commission, affiliate. All you skeptics out there that are thinking that we're just promoting Titanium because we're getting paid, we're not getting paid. And guys, when we are getting paid a referral fee or an affiliate commission, I tell you, we're not now, okay? We didn't want that kind of relationship. We wanted a relationship that was very above board where you guys knew exactly what was going on. So there it is. So, again, Joel, thank you for joining us for today's Superstar interview, and thank you for all of you. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any short sale specific questions, send them to Joel. If you have any questions about our short sale coaching program and earning your accredited short sale designation, obviously you want to check us out. You can email me. All of you can email me at any time, students or not, tim@harrisrealestateuniversity.com. Joel, have a wonderful weekend.
I very much enjoyed it, and thanks for having me. I hope to do it again with you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.